I am almost convinced at this point that executives at Bud Light really do not care what you think. They couldn't care less if you're boycotting them. They couldn't care less if you're refusing to buy their beer. Either they don't care or they've just decided to throw in the towel. They're essentially giving up. That is the only reasons I can come up with as to why Bud Light promoted their latest commercial this past weekend. Nothing else makes sense here. I don't understand how Anheuser-Busch CEO Brendan Whitworth, I don't understand how he still has a job. There are hundreds, possibly even thousands of people who have been negatively impacted by this boycott of Bud Light. Now, these people I'm talking about, these are normal people. People working in sales who are obviously unemployed at this point because no one's buying Bud Light. In some cities, they are literally trying to give away cases of Bud Light for free and no one's taking them. When homeless alcoholics are refusing your offer of free booze, you've got a serious problem. People working in factories lost their jobs. But for some reason, the people responsible for this disaster, they are still collecting millions of dollars. The company's literally on fire. And Brendan Whitworth, he's just standing there with his little Peter in the palm of his hands, pissing along the edges of the flame, hoping it will stop the flame from spreading. Over the past few weeks, we have seen Bud Light trying to appeal to normal people. They've reopened their comment section on social media, allowing people to make jokes at their expense. They've went through their vault searching for commercials they produced in the past that promote patriotism and Americana. They've received support from shit-fucked celebrities like Garth Brooks, the honky-tonk singer from the 90s, who hadn't been relevant in like 20 years. But none of that's worked. As we'll talk about more here in just a second, sales of Bud Light continued their massive decline through the 4th of July holiday weekend. But yesterday morning, it appears Bud Light is waving the white flag. It appears that they're giving up trying to appeal to normal people. Or maybe they were just trying to be funny here. And just like all other forms of woke comedy, the joke fell flat. Yesterday morning, Bud Light uploaded their latest promo on Twitter. Now this promo, it features what appears to be a biological woman. Now I'm just assuming here. This person has all the features that you'd expect to see on a woman, but knowing Bud Light, they could have hired a man for the job, paid for his breast augmentation, put him in a pretty little dress, and called him a woman. The assumed woman, she is sitting on a park bench enjoying a nice woke picnic. She's eating the cucumber out of what appears to be a gigantic watermelon. This melon, it is similar in size to Joy Behar's head. It's huge outer shell with nothing inside. As the assumed woman enjoys her cucumber, hurricane force winds are blowing all around her. Now, this is meant to be symbolic. It's meant to illustrate the storm that Bud Light has been going through over the last 3 months. They captioned this video with, "It's fine, this is fine, everything's all good, it's business as usual." Watch for yourself. How out of touch can you be? You really expect me to believe that everything is fine at Bud Light? You really expect me to believe that executives are not worried about their future? Last week, Bud Light hired Travis Kelce to endorse their brand. Now, my inside sources tell me Travis, he was not their first choice. He was actually their third choice. They initially reached out to Jackie Mahomes, but Jackie, he was busy getting familiar with his cellmate Brutus. Their second choice was Leah Thomas, but, Leah's busy too. Leah was at the doctor having that 5 o'clock shadow permanently removed. So Bud Light went with their third choice, Travis Kelce. Now, up until this point, Travis Kelce was one of the most popular athletes in the country. I was struggling to understand why he would put himself in the middle of this shit fire. You're in the prime of your NFL career. You've won 2 Super Bowls. You host a popular podcast. Why would you insert your cucumber into a dry, withering cactus? Apparently, Kelce Travis is a glutton for punishment. He chose to endorse Bud Light because I want to put an end to all this LGBT hatred. Okay. This commercial with Kelce Travis, it went live on YouTube last Monday. 422 likes, over 21,000 dislikes. The like-dislike ratio, 2% to 98%. No one can save Bud Light at this point. Perhaps that's why 6 days later they published their latest commercial trolling their former customers. It was announced over the weekend that Bud Light had fallen out of the top 10 of the most popular beers in America. Now, to my knowledge, this is the first time that this has happened. Last year at this time, they ranked 9th. Today, they are barely clinging to the top 15. What's even more staggering for executives at Bud Light, the sales declines, they're getting worse. Going into the 4th of July holiday, sales of Bud Light declined by over 28%. Now, when we've talked about sales declines in the past, the declines mainly hit two of their brands, Budweiser and Bud Light. Secondary brands like Michelob Ultra, they were spared. That is no longer the case. Mich Ultra, down almost 5%. Sales of Busch Light, the beer preferred by inhabitants of a house on wheels without enough spare change to purchase natural light. Sales of Busch Light, down almost 9%. Even though Bud Light has tried to distance themselves from Bob Dylan Mulvaney, normal people are not allowing it to happen. Over the weekend, someone put together a compilation video of some of Bobby D's greatest hits. They posted the video in Bud Light's timeline on Twitter. Now, why is this bad for Bud Light? Keep in mind, this compilation, it includes videos from Bobby D that were made last year, well before Bob and Bud consummated their marriage. See if you notice the comment that makes the former marriage between Bobby D and Buddy L even worse. Watch for yourself.
Spent most of my life using men's restrooms. Please don't ever make me go back there. But I thought we could celebrate today by instead rating my experiences in women's public restrooms.
I may be a little bit romantically interested in women.
Let's go! First up, we have amusement park restrooms, or really any restroom often frequented by children.
Any restroom often frequented by children, Now, do I think Dylan Mulvaney is a predator? No, of course not. But the optics of this are absolutely terrible, especially when you align your brand to someone like this. This is why you've got to do your due diligence. Yesterday, the brilliant minds at the street, they published an article highlighting the two biggest problems facing Bud Light. First problem, rather obvious, their failed marriage with Dylan Mulvaney. But the street, they had a different perspective of this failed marriage. As we have discussed in the past, Bud Light, they should have apologized to their consumers for partnering with Dylan Mulvaney. That's how normal men feel. But that's not how woke men feel. According to the street, Bud Light couldn't apologize for marrying Bob Dylan Mulvaney. No! Why would they apologize for trying to appeal to a new audience? Why would they apologize for marketing their brand to less than 1% of the population? Like I told you before, the reason executives at Bud Light refused to apologize, they didn't feel like they had done anything wrong. According to the street, apologizing for marrying Dylan Mulvaney, that would have required Bud Light to take a political stand that they just weren't willing to take. And you know what? That is 100% true, and it's also the point. It's also the reason this boycott is not going away. The message is clear. Bud Light was willing to take a stand fighting for transgender rights that have already been given, but they were not willing to take a stand for their own consumers. The street claims if Bud Light had apologized for their association with Dylan Mulvaney, it would have meant the company wasn't inclusive to their LGBT customers. Yeah, that might be true, but since they didn't apologize, they weren't inclusive to their actual customers. And now, they don't have any customers. You see how well inclusion works? By being inclusive, Bud Light has become exclusive. Now, the second problem facing Bud Light that was highlighted by the street was the brand insulting their customer base. Now, I just gave you the latest example of Bud Light insulting their customers, but this article was talking about comments that were made by the former vice president of marketing, Alyssa Heinerscheid. Her friends call her Heine for short. Heine is currently collecting food stamps. She was one of the few casualties at Bud Light who actually deserved to lose her job. Alyssa, she was responsible for the collaboration with Dylan Mulvaney. When the backlash started back in April, she gave an interview to some podcast that no one listens to and no one had ever heard of by that point, but a clip of the show went viral. Heine was insulting legacy customers of Bud Light. She called them frat boys. She insinuated that Bud Light needed to become more mature, more elegant. You know, because there is so much elegance involved in shotgunning beers at a frat party. The street claims that Bud Light made a huge mistake, by not apologizing for her comments. They fired her, but most people don't know that. The only thing people remember is an executive at Bud Light insulting them. When we look back on this 5 years from now, Bud Light is going to be remembered as the greatest collapse in the history of corporate America. This is proof that nothing is too big to fail. Let me tell you how desperate they've become. I mean, this is actually pathetic. Bud Light CEO Brendan Whitworth, he thinks you're stupid. In a recent interview, he tried to play the victim. Now, he wasn't making himself the victim. He was making the 65,000 employees of Bud Light the victim. I take full responsibility for what happened, but please don't punish my employees. Punish me. Give me the supersized cucumber without the benefit of preparation H. For starters, Brendan Whitworth has yet to take any responsibility. I've yet to see one apology. And two, this boycott is not the reason that 65,000 jobs are at risk. This boycott, it is the symptom to the real problem. The real problem here, Brendan Whitworth, he allowed his company to be infected with the woke fungus. If he's so worried about his employees, maybe he should have thought about that before aligning with Dylan Mulvaney. If he's so worried about his employees, maybe he should step down as CEO and let someone who knows what the fuck they're doing take over the role. But even if that happened, it's too little too late. Nothing can be done at this point to save Bud Light. They put themselves in the position of trying to serve two masters. Instead of studying the woke Bible, maybe Brendan Whitworth, maybe he should have been reading the actual Bible. I'm pretty sure the actual Bible teaches you that you can't serve two masters. But give me your thoughts. The first Bud Light commercial I shared with you, does that signal that the company is giving up trying to appeal to normal people? Bud Light CEO Brendan Whitworth, he is pleading with consumers to support the company to save 65,000 jobs. Will that pathetic display work? The decline in sales, it is almost 30%, keeps growing with each passing week. Could we reach a point where we see Bud Light sales decline by 50%? You let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.